about Strongest Families Institute. I wish we had this great service when my kids were little, because I think they would have really helped us out a lot as a military family who've moved a lot. And it's my privilege and my pleasure to host this in partnership with Halifax Military Family Resource Center and True Patriot Love Foundation. And this session will be recorded. I wanted to let you know, and we're going to be seeing quite a few videos. If you're joining on an iPod or a telephone or a cell phone, you won't be able to see the videos, but we will send you the videos after the session. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Elizabeth Hines, who's the Senior Program Manager for Strongest Families Institute in Halifax. And we're actually from coast to coast to coast, from British Columbia right through to Halifax and Germany. So this is really cool that we can do this with the interactive virtual platform. So thank you so much, Elizabeth, and I'm going to send it to you now.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I'm really excited to be able to chat with folks in a new way, to kind of reach out to lots of folks across the country at the same time. So I certainly also would like to thank Margaret, as well as the Halifax and Region MFRC, for hosting this and allowing us to give folks some information about the Strongest Families Institute. Like Margaret mentioned, my name is Elizabeth Hines, and I am the Senior Program Manager at Strongest Families, and I oversee all of the programming that we do with military families, our Military Families Initiative at Strongest Families. And so I am generally the main contact person for MFRCs and folks that are interested and military families looking to access the program. And my hope for us today is to give you a bit of an overview about how Strongest Families works, about the programs that we have to offer, talk to you a little bit about what families can expect from the Strongest Families Institute, and answer any questions that you might have along the way. I certainly would encourage you to feel free to come off mute and ask away. I won't at all mind any interruptions. If you have questions along the way, I'm very happy to pause and to answer them, so please don't hesitate to reach out.
One more thing before we start. If you have questions, you can either put them in the chat that I'll be monitoring, or you can just raise your hand. So beside the green check, there's a little hand. If you want to just raise your hand to make sure you know where it is. Green check. Oh, there we go. Julie's got it. Very good. It's on the right-hand side of the screen to the left of the green check is the little hand. If you click on that hand, it's like raising your hand in a classroom.
I think James may have hit it by accident earlier.
Yes, that's right. So Lisa and Kristen, can you get that? Just want to make sure everybody's got it. Kelly, if you want to put your hand up for just a minute.
Hand up, please. I did. Isn't it up?
Yeah. Oh. Excellent. So just if you have any questions, either use the chat, I'll be monitoring, or raise your hand.
Margaret, where I'm on an iPhone, I do not get the hand, correct?
That's correct. So you'll just have to use your chat.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'll be monitoring it. All right.
Okay, wonderful. So we'll jump in and chat a little bit about the Strongest Families Institute and how we started. So Strongest Families is a psychologically informed, evidence-based distance education program for parents with children aged 3 to 17. And we started here in Halifax with our initial research through the IWK about 16 years ago. And we've been our own nonprofit organization working directly with families across the country for about the last 6 years. And the Strongest Families programs are designed to teach families some skills to help target some specific mental health concerns, so things like behavior concerns, ADHD, oppositional defiance disorder, conduct concerns, as well as anxiety issues as well. So what I'd like to do basically to start out here is just to show you a little video that gives some brief background information about Strongest Families and tells you a bit about one particular family that went through our anxiety program. So for those of you that are able to see this, then we'll go through this short video.
Okay, before you do, please mute your microphones because we'll be hearing everybody's sound otherwise. And Elizabeth, if you can mute as well.
Oh, yes, great. Forgot to take myself off mute before I started talking. Sorry, folks. So as the video mentions there, what makes Strongest Families different is the fact that all of our programs are delivered to families in their own homes and sort of in the privacy of their own homes. Margaret, if you wouldn't mind switching to the next slide, that would be great. Thank you. So like I mentioned, all of the programs are delivered to families in their own homes. We are really aiming to remove some of the barriers that families can sometimes face when they're reaching out for mental health services. So with all the Strongest Families programs, families have a weekly call with a telephone coach. And those calls are scheduled at times that are most convenient for the family. So we have coaches working at our office here in Halifax up to 2 a.m. Atlantic time, which allows us to have appointments and meetings with families all across the country, even into the evening. We know that often those evening time points can work better for families when families are home from work or kids are in bed, those sorts of things. So that's one of the ways that we really aim to make it a little bit easier for families to access the program. Oftentimes those really convenient appointment times mean that there's no need for them to take time off work or time off of school, take children out of school. There's no cost to the family and there's no cost to the MFRCs. And that means that the program is available regardless of the location of the family or how far they might be from the MFRC.
Can you, at the other computer desk is my stand for my computer.
Oh, does anybody have a question there? Sorry,
Tricia, did you have a question? No.
Doesn't sound like it. I heard a voice come in, but just wanted to be sure. So as I mentioned, that means that we can reach out to families regardless of where they might be, where their home might be, how far they might be from the MFRC that's closest to them, which really allows Strongest Families as a whole to provide services to some communities that may not get the same access to mental health service. And one of the big things that we're really proud of with Strongest Families is the fact that our ability to kind of come to you, that we can come and reach you in your own home, gives some anonymity, which really helps to deal with some of the stigma that families can sometimes face by reaching out for mental health services. So when you're able to do it in your own home and over the phone, that sometimes makes it easier for families to reach out and not feel any concern in terms of reaching out for some mental health services. Any questions so far? Okay, well then maybe we'll move on to the next slide if you don't mind there, Margaret.
Sure, no problem. Tricia, if you can just mute your microphone.
Sorry.
No worries. I muted it for you. You couldn't unmute. There we go.
There we go. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how the Strongest Families programs work. When families are referred to us through their local MFRC, military families in particular, they first complete an intake screening questionnaire, which on our end gives us a really in-depth look at the concerns that the family might be facing. And at that point, when we have a good understanding of which program may be the best fit for the family, they're paired with a coach. And that coach is going to be consistent week to week. They work with the same coach throughout the course of the program. And families complete one skill-based session per week. And in between those sessions, the family will have some materials to review and some skills to practice each day, some exercises, some sort of homework to do, to give them some skills to cope with the challenges that they may be facing. And that material that families get, they can either access all that written material online through our secure website, or we can send them out a handbook in the mail, whatever is the easier option for the family. Our coaches are all highly trained and highly monitored, and they're really trained in delivering this researched, evidence-based, effective Strongest Families program. And then they're also trained to customize those Strongest Families skills to meet the specific needs of these individual families that they're working with. So while all of the skills are the same, regardless of what family comes to us, the coaches then take those skills and make sure that we're really focusing on the specific concerns that a family is coming in with. Okay.
There's a question from Petawawa.
Oh, great.
Did you want to ask the question, Lisa? Unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, so my question was, we've actually referred a couple of separated and divorced families, and was just curious if you'd had any challenges with that, because we haven't had any feedback on whether it was a smooth process for families who might be living in multiple homes.
Right. And that's something that we really kind of discuss, as you know, on a case-by-case basis about whether the right fit for a family is to complete the program together with both parents participating in the same phone call even though they live separately, or whether it might be a better fit for those families to go through separately with mom and dad, or whatever the case might be, completing their own files. And so that's part of my role as the program manager that deals with the military families, is to be sure that we're making the right choice for those families, and that both parents are going to get the most from the program. So it is often very beneficial for families to go through the program together if possible, for everyone to be on the same page. But we also, of course, understand that there are times that that's not the right fit.
Right. Okay, great. That's helpful.
Yeah. Any other questions right now before we jump back in? Okay. So this next slide talks a little bit about the additional training that coaches receive when they're working with military families in particular. So all of our coaches who are working directly with military families receive some additional cultural competency training around the military and the military lifestyle. We know that military families can face some unique challenges. I know that as well. I'm also part of a military family, so we know that there are lots of things that can come up specifically for military families that their civilian counterparts may not be facing, at least in the same frequency as sometimes military families do, especially things like transitions and postings and deployments. And so coaches who are working with military families really are able to focus on helping parents and children adjust to the changes in those routines, to increase and to strengthen family relationships, to try to get both parents on the same page as much as possible in a two-parent household, and to prevent some of those big swings in behavior or anxiety that we know can be quite common when we have those frequent transitions. And so our coaches who are working with military families really work hard sort of before, during, and after any transitions that we know are coming to help the family be as prepared for that as possible. And then with military life, we know sometimes we do not know when those transitions are coming, and so they're also really well equipped to help deal with some of those last-minute changes and to reassure parents that we know that those sorts of challenges or those sorts of situations can be challenging, and to help them have some skills to cope with that, both for the parents and for the children who are involved. So the next video that we're going to share here is part of a larger video from our colleagues at True Patriot Love. And this video outlines a really compelling story from a veteran family who completed the Strongest Families program fairly recently, and their experiences with the program.
Okay, so make sure that you're muted, and I will play that now.
Okay, that video gets me every time. Yes, we're really happy to be able to share some experiences specific to military families, and like we heard in that video, they're just encouraging families to have some skills to help them cope with some of the specific challenges that come up for military families. What we'll work on next is I'm just going to jump into some information about our two primary programs. So the first program that I'll talk a little bit about is our behavior-based program. So this is a program for children with, or for parents rather, with children aged 3 to 12. And this program is really parent education. It's designed to give parents some skills to cope with issues like attention issues or impulse control concerns, issues with cooperation or arguing or temper tantrums, conduct concerns like aggression or destruction, as well as some of the symptoms that come along with ADHD or ODD. And as we mentioned a little bit earlier, parents can access the material for the behavior program either online through our website or with a written handbook that we can send out to them in the mail, whichever they find most convenient. And that behavior program is 12 sessions long. So it takes families about 3 to 4 months to complete the program, and they have that one skill-based session a week, so they move their way through those 12 sessions. And with the behavior program, parents have the option of one-on-one coaching, so it's just themselves and the coach talking on the phone and going through the skills. Or they can choose to have a group-based option. So in that option, there's a small group of parents and a coach who would be leading them through the same skills. We get really positive feedback from our group sessions. We often hear that parents really enjoy the feedback that they get. They often tell us that they really appreciate sort of knowing that they're not alone in some of the challenges that they're facing, and they're really able to sort of share tips and tricks and what's working and some options that might work for other families. So that's an option for families as well. Either way, when families come through to us, they get to choose what they feel is going to be the right option for them. So if they prefer, then they can do it just between the one-on-one or the group session. And I see there was a question in the chat that yes, the group sessions are all over the phone. Any questions right off the bat about the behavior program?
You do a group call.
It's essentially a bit of a conference call like this is. So the parents call into a toll-free line, so there's no cost to them. And our coaches, our group coaches, also get some additional training to facilitate that call. So it's the same skills as the one-on-one coaching, and they would still have the sort of homework and reading and activities to do each week. And then the coach leads the group through the session and facilitates the conversation and hears about what's working and what's not working before they kind of set up a new skill. And the group option is really lovely for families. Like I mentioned, it is really wonderful sometimes for families to hear that they're not the only ones experiencing these sorts of issues. And then of course the group coach is also available for questions outside of that conference call if a family would like to ask a question outside of the larger group.
Thank you.
So the next thing that we'll talk a little bit about is our anxiety program. There's two programs essentially that we offer for anxiety. The same set of basic skills. However, the program is sort of tailored depending on the age of the child. So it's available for children and youth age 6 to 17. And the younger half of that, the sort of 6 to 12-year-olds, that program is called Chase Worries Away. And the older half, the kind of 12 or 13 to 17, is called Defeat Anxiety. And that is really education and skills for both the parent and the child or youth. So both would participate in the phone calls with the coach. Generally, the way that works is that the first part of the call is done with the parent to give them some strategies and some tools to help them coach the child at home. And then the second part of the call is with the child or youth. And again, we of course understand that what a 6-year-old is able to do on the phone is very different than what a 17-year-old is able to do. And so our coaches, again, are trained and are able to kind of modify the program depending on the age and the ability of the child. And so in those calls, the parent and the youth or the child are learning some coping skills, some relaxation skills to help them at times where they're feeling worried. And we also focus on gradual exposure to situations that may cause them some worry. So for example, if a child is quite worried about being away from their parent, then we would look at some small steps to gradually sort of expose them to that worry. So we might start with something quite small, like a child playing downstairs while mom is upstairs, and then move to a child playing in the backyard while mom is inside, or maybe mom going for a walk around the block, those sorts of things. So as they have more and more skills to help them when they feel worried, then they have a few more goals to do to kind of gradually show them that they are able to handle these situations that may sometimes cause them some anxiety. And again, families in this case get to choose between the handbook that we send out in the mail to them, or they can access that material online. And most of the time, the anxiety program is just offered one-on-one between the family and the coach. However, we do, just in the last year, we've started a youth group program, which is going very, very well. We've had lots of great success with it. So in that case, it would be a small group of youth who are in a similar age or similar grades at school, and the coach, again, leading the group through the skills and setting goals with them, and then working a little bit outside of the group with the parents as well to help be sure that everybody's on the right track. So that's been an exciting new development for us in the last year and a half or so to get those youth groups started as well.
And how long do the youth groups go for?
The anxiety program is 12 sessions, or 10 sessions rather. So that, again, it usually takes about 3 to 4 months to complete entirely, but there's 10 of those skill-based sessions a week.
Okay. Thank you.
I will mention as well that both the programs, the anxiety program and the behavior program, are fully bilingual, available in both English and French through the MFRCs that we are able to take referrals through at this time. So we are fully bilingual and able to accept referrals right from the get-go in French if that's the best fit for the family.
Tricia has a really good question. Do you want to unmute, Tricia?
That is a really good question.
Sorry, took me a minute. There we go. Can you take both behavior and anxiety sessions at the same time?
That is a great question. We generally do not do both behavior and anxiety at the same time. If both behavior and anxiety are present and an issue for the family, then what we almost always recommend is for families to do the behavior program first, so just the parent to go through that program. The anxiety program is quite a lot of work for the children. They really have to be involved and want to participate. There's some homework for them to do, and we know that sometimes sort of taking care of those behavior concerns first will really set the child up to be more successful with the anxiety program. So what we usually do is we would do the behavior program first, and then if there were still anxiety concerns present, then we would look at moving into the anxiety program once that was finished.
Okay.
Good question.
Yeah. Often we also find that the behavior program alone will reduce both the behavior and the anxiety concerns together, and that sometimes families who came intending to do both programs don't need to by the time that they're done the behavior program. Not always, but that is sometimes what we do see. Are there any other
follow-up do you do after the 12-week sessions?
Yeah, we do a 1-month follow-up with families after the sessions are completed. So our goal is really by the end of the program to be able to set families up to be their own coach, where they know the skills and they're able to problem solve and figure out what skills they'll use if there are any setbacks or if anything does come up. But we do a 1-month follow-up with families about a month later to make sure that everything is on track and they're able to use the skills consistently and they don't have any questions. So that's our final scheduled phone call with the families. But of course, if they have any questions after that, they will still have access to their coach and are welcome to reach out if they have any questions anytime in the future.
Thank you.
Yeah. Are there any other questions before we move along?
Give us a green check if you're ready to continue. Green check is to the right of the hand. There you go. Just give us a green check if you have no questions, you're ready to continue. Wonderful. We are good to go, my dear.
Okay, all right. So then the next thing that I'd like to do is just to look at a few examples from some military families who have completed the program. So actually, the first ones that we'll look at are around our behavior program. And if you can flip through to the next slide, actually, Margaret, that would be great. So this, before I jump into this specific example, I'll just give you a little bit of background on what you're looking at here. So this graph is something that we use to help us evaluate how families have done through the course of the program. We use a validated tool called the BCFPI, Brief Child and Family Phone Interview. And it's a validated tool that's used around the world to help to identify some concerns that families may be having or youth may be having. And that's what I mentioned earlier, when families complete that intake screening questionnaire, that's the Brief Child and Family Phone Interview. That gives us a really good indication of what's going on with their family, whether they have behavior concerns or anxiety concerns, how that's affecting their child, how that's affecting their family. So it's a really great tool for us to get an overall picture. And the graph that you're looking at here, the black bars are the sort of quantitative data from the initial screening questionnaire, the intake questionnaire. And the gray bars are from the follow-up or the final questionnaire. So it's the same series of questions that they answer at the beginning and the end of the program. And so as you can see with this graph, the higher the number, the more significant the concerns are, and the lower the number, the lesser significance. And it is good to point out that those gray bars never get to 0. There is kind of a standard, so lots of those numbers are likely as low as they can go. And you can probably see there's a line there at the 70 mark. And that just kind of goes across the screen there. And that 70 mark is used to identify concerns that would be at a clinical level, so that they're clinically significant behavior or anxiety concerns. And so we do require families in that initial screening questionnaire to have some concerns, at least at 65, which is approaching a clinical level, and that way we know that there are some significant concerns to work on there, and then we would hope that all of those concerns would be under that 65 or 70, under that clinical line by the time we had finished the program. So this graph that you're seeing is an example of a family that completed the behavior program, and they have, you can see there that they had the more clinical concerns in the beginning, and then most of those concerns completely resolved in the end. So this is a graph that we send out to parents as well, so that they get an overview of the success that they've had through the course of the program. We send this as part of a much larger letter to outline their success and the skills that they've learned and some examples of the successes that they've seen, kind of like a little report card at the end of the program. And then that way they can really see the challenges as well that they've made over time. I see. Oh, that's you asking a question, Margaret, isn't it?
Yeah. So
yeah.
I see your father then completed 6 core skill sessions. Was that when he was on deployment?
In this situation, Mom completed the program on her own while Dad was deployed, and then Dad came back just as we were finishing up the program. So we then went forward with Dad to do kind of catch him up essentially. So we gave him 6 sessions to really go through the core skills of the program so that they could both be on the same page. And depending on the situation with deployed members, sometimes we'll do like this, and we'll do 6 sessions with the family when they get back. Sometimes if a family isn't the whole way through, we can just do 1 or 2 sessions to kind of get them caught up. Whatever is going to work for the family and whatever is the best bet for us. So we really kind of approach that on a case-by-case basis, but we know that things work best for families when everyone is on the same page. So we do our very best to try to get both parents on the same page if it is that 2-parent household.
Oh, thank you.
All right. So, like we started to talk about here, this particular case, Mom did the program on her own. When we started out talking with this family, the young girl, the 6-year-old girl, was having significant difficulties focusing, was quite dangerously impulsive, so really kind of running off and doing things or grabbing things that were making it quite dangerous for the family. Lots of concerns with compliance, so arguing and talking back, and temper tantrums that were really quite severe toward the parent as well as her very young sibling. And at the end of the program, as we moved our way through, we heard from Mom that routines were running more smoothly. She was really getting along with her little sister, and that the child was helpful and thoughtful, especially as we neared the end there while Dad was still deployed. And by the end of the program, we had no temper tantrums and no aggression at all within the last month of the program. So they really had some amazing success as they moved their way through. And Margaret, if you would, there's an audio clip here from this mother about her experiences with the program.
Absolutely.
I mean, especially in post getting ready to go, and part of the kids get the burner, and you don't necessarily, you're not there for them like you should be when they're going through a lot. I guess.
Having
I think everybody should.
Hmm.
I really do. Like, it's an eye-opener for.
Thank you. So that's the first example that I would give you. There's the next slide talks about one other example of a military family that went through recently. This particular example has a very beautiful graph, as you can see. There's some really significant behavior concerns there early on in the program with attention and impulse control, cooperation and conduct, and lots of those concerns really completely resolved by the end of the program. In this case, the mother who completed the program did the program for both of her children, so that is an option where siblings can go through the program at the same time if there are concerns with more than one child. So in this case, it was a 4-year-old male and an 8-year-old female who had some additional diagnoses there, ADHD, ODD, and autism spectrum disorder. So we were able to move through and make goals for both children. And if you'll flick through to the next slide there, Margaret, we can see some of the things that they were presenting with and then how that worked out for the families. So both children, what we heard from the initial screening questionnaire and from the parent were that there were difficulties with both of them focusing and with impulsive behavior, the talking back and defiant behavior, outbursts and temper tantrums, some quite significant concerns with the morning and the bedtime routines. And in the end, we heard Mom talk much more about the children listening and helping. Those morning and bedtime routines were sorted out. Mom was very eager to tell us that she was able to take a shower in the morning, which was something that she had never really been able to do before. We heard lots of less fighting, both with the parent and between the children. And there's some specific examples there. The 4-year-old, all the concerns about taking things from others had been resolved, and the 7-year-old not breaking things and feeling much less anxiety or stress in some social situations. So again, another great kind of before and after for both of these children. And again, 2 audios here to share from this mother.
So what are the wait times? Elizabeth, you're muted.
sorry, I'm talking away to no one in my office here. There's no wait time for families when they're referred through to us at Strongest Families. We don't have a wait list. We always have spaces available for coaches to start with families right away. If there is a situation where a family needs a very specific time because they have lots of extracurriculars going on and they really can only do a call on Monday nights at 7 p.m., we can accommodate that. But there may be, we may need to wait for a coach to finish up a family in order to have that spot available. But we do, like I mentioned, we always have spaces available for families to start right away.
What a fabulous service.
Are there any other questions about the behavior program before we move on from that?
How old did you have to be to take the behavior one? How old do your kids have to be?
Between the ages of 3 and 12.
Perfect.
Any other questions? Okay. So we'll move on and chat a little bit more in detail about our anxiety program and some examples for military families who've completed that program. So, Margaret, remind me, is the video for this one here coming up, or did we?
No, we don't have the video for this one. We have the video for the next one.
Yes, okay, that's great. So like I mentioned before, there are 2 programs for our anxiety program, both covering essentially the same set of relaxation skills, but really just targeted for a different audience. So this first program, you can see an example of the front cover there of the children's workbook for our Chase Worries Away program, and that's available for children aged 6 to 12. And then the other program for age 12, 13 to 17 is called Defeat Anxiety. And this little video here that we'll show really just talks a bit about what youth see when they log into the online material and sort of how we're working to make it as interactive as possible for them. Great. So that's just a little bit of an overview about the online material. Again, youth and children and families can choose to have the workbooks and those sorts of activities sent to them in a paper handbook if that's easier. But we're working hard to continue to upgrade our online material and make it interactive. We know that youth especially are very keen to access things on their phone. The website is available on the phone, and we're continuing to develop and launch more mobile features for youth to engage with us online as well.
Lisa was wondering how many coaches you have.
Yes, I see that. We have, at the moment, about 30, between 25 and 30 coaches who are working full-time with families. As Dr. Potty mentioned in that video, they are we helped over 4,000 families this year, so not between our military and civilian contracts throughout the country. Yes, I see full-time, mostly full-time jobs. Yes, they are. Our coaches are primarily all working full-time, and those that aren't would have started with us full-time and then taken a part-time position with us as their lives changed. But because the training is so in-depth and such an undertaking takes months to really be fully trained and signed off, we do generally hire full-time when we're hiring for coaches.
Wow, great.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll move on to the next slides here, which again are some examples to share with you specifically about military families that completed the anxiety program. In this first example, it was an 8-year-old male who participated in the program. In this case, Dad had deployed to Haiti in 2010, and they had seen quite a significant increase in the anxiety concerns after that, where the little guy was were often worried about family members and had difficulty even just kind of talking about Dad's role and time in the military. And we saw some quite significant concerns around separating from his parents, some somatic complaints, stomach aches and headaches, worries, quite a lot of worries specifically about something happening to Dad, as well as some worries about schoolwork and performance and sort of social situations. And in the end, we heard this family have much better much better skills to deal with separation. They were able to be apart from one another without worry. The child was able to fall asleep on his own at night, had much more confidence in general kind of going into school and social situations. And so there's 2 audio clips to go along with this one from the parent and then one from the child. So sweet. I see Kim ask a question there around the educational background of the coaches. That's a great question. Our coaches come to us with a number of backgrounds. Because we are a highly researched education program, most of the training that we do for coaches is done in-house. It is really important that every family is receiving the same program that's delivered in the way that we know it to be effective. So most of our coaches come to us with a background, usually with an undergraduate degree, often in psychology or family studies. We have quite a few coaches who have completed college courses around counseling or working with youth and families. So kind of varied backgrounds in terms of what the coaches come to us with, usually with a passion for mental health and lots of experience working with kids and families, and then, as I mentioned, our quite intensive training around the research that went into our programs, the skills and how they work together, and how to customize those skills to meet the specific needs of families within the program. Are there any other questions or any follow-up questions? Oh, I'm seeing.
Give us a green check if you're ready to go ahead. Or
yeah, I'm seeing another question there from Kim around the self-harm in the scales there. So for 42.1, as you're seeing in the graph here, Kim asked a question there about the self-harm part of the graph there, which is the third from the end. And 42.1 is often the lowest that will go. And those questions, what makes up that bar in that graph, have to do with whether a child has lost any weight without trying, is unusually unhappy, sad, or depressed, have attempted to harm themselves in the past, or have made any comments about harming themselves or thoughts of suicide. And so most of the time, what we're seeing in the graphs that I've been showing you is that there aren't any significant concerns at all, which is why they haven't changed too much in the graphs that we've been looking at here. Often what we do see, especially with younger children in the behavior program, is that times when they have harmed themselves or talked about harming themselves is usually linked to kind of temper outbursts or temper tantrums, and then those sorts of things we work to decrease through the course of the program. Certainly we do work with youth who have more significant self-harm concerns, and because we are an education-based program, we would want to be sure that if that was an ongoing concern for a youth or a child, that was something that they were also being followed up with by a doctor to be sure that they were getting any more urgent services that they might be needing. We are an education program and we are a distance program, so when we take referrals through MFRCs, if there are kind of specific or unique concerns for a family, we can often handle quite significant cases or things where there are some various comorbidities, that sort of thing, but we do want to be sure that we're the right fit and that an education program is going to be significant enough. So if we're seeing a family that may need more urgent care or more intensive services, or if that changes while families are in the course of the program with us, then we always work really closely with the folks who referred them, so whether that's the MFRC or a provincial mental health clinic, to be sure that if the needs change for a family, that we're in touch and being sure that they're getting the right services. Did that answer your question, Kim? Okay, great. Great. Okay. So then there's one more example that I'd love to share with you of a youth who went through the program, and in this case, the youth's primary concerns were really around social concerns and school, and so we can see that in the managing anxiety and managing mood. Again, that self-harm bar there that is quite high came primarily from thoughts and feelings and feeling unhappy and sad and depressed. those sorts of things. And so then we can see in the outcome here that the youth was able to engage in social situations. We heard him have some really significant conversations with his guidance counselor about plans for upcoming schooling and what he wanted to do for high school. He got his learner's permit. He signed up for a sports team, things that all seemed kind of out of reach for him and before he started the program that he was able to do throughout the course of the program here. And there is an audio from this youth as well. Okay, so I know we're coming close to the end of our time, and I don't want to keep you folks for longer than you had agreed to, so I'll kind of move through the last few slides here quickly. As we can see from some of these examples and the outcome from the families, we know that the Strongest Families programs are effective. We know that families who complete the program are seeing lots of positive changes. Overall, Strongest Families has a higher than 85% outcome success rate, which means that those concerns that were approaching or at that clinical level are completely resolved by the end of the program. Greater than 85% is sort of our benchmark, and I think this year it's actually at about 91% success rate. As we heard in the very beginning, we have a less than 10% attrition or dropout rate, which is quite unheard of for mental health services. And again, that's our benchmark. And for us this year, it's actually about 6%, our dropout rate once families have initiated and started into the program. And we also have a satisfaction measure that we really make sure that we're getting feedback from families when they've completed the program, and we have a greater than 90% satisfaction rate. Again, I'm quite sure that is like 99% for us this year. We know that families are seeing success, and we know that they're satisfied with the program when they complete it. There are some other statistics here just for interest's sake. In our behavior or anxiety programs, we aren't necessarily specifically dealing with some of these concerns, but we know that we can have a great impact on bullying concerns as well as academic achievement and overall sort of family functioning as well. I see there are a couple of questions here on the side, so I'm trying to take a look at those as well.
The only way to join the program through the MFRC, or can an individual register? I'm a military wife and not part of the MFRC.
Right. So for military families, the MFRC is the most direct way for you to get a referral. So even just contacting someone from the MFRC, they would be able to send your information along to Strongest Families. If you prefer not to go through the MFRC, you could certainly call Strongest Families directly or contact me directly, and we can help to get you set up and try to go through the right ways. But the MFRCs, the Halifax MFRC, as well as the others that we we work with are all very familiar with our programs and would be able to get your information and send it through quite quickly. And additional follow-up. We don't have any scheduled follow-up with families that long out, a year or two later. However, we do always encourage families to follow up if they do have any questions after they've finished the program. And we have had families do the program more than one time. We know that concerns that a family may be having when a child is 6 or 7 may be very different from what the concerns that they're having when the child is 11 or 12. And so it isn't unheard of that families go through the program when, again, a few years later when there may be some additional or different concerns that they had from the first time.
Does that answer your question, Tricia? If you want to take your green check down and then give me another green check or a happy face, that'd be great. There we go. All right.
Okay, great. Great. Okay, so then if we move on to the next slide there, it kind of goes to what Tricia was asking there. If you're a military family that's interested in receiving the Strongest Family services, the quickest and easiest way for military families is to contact their local military family resource center and ask for a referral to be sent through to us. Or, like I mentioned, you can call Strongest Families directly, and they will help you to find the right way to get a referral sent in. So our toll-free line is there as well, and my email address at the bottom. And once we receive a referral here at Strongest Families, we work to contact a family within 24 to 48 hours of that referral coming in. And then, like I mentioned, we book that initial screening questionnaire.
And Danny, did you have a question? You're muted. There we go.
Not a question exactly, but I wondered if maybe I could jump in and lend a little more insight on how the referral process works at the Halifax MFRC.
Sure, Danny, thanks.
Sure. So I'm a social worker at the Halifax MFRC. I'm part of the mental health and well-being team. So any family that was interested in being referred to Strongest Families, you would want to contact the mental health and well-being team. And the easiest way to do that is to contact the MFRC's main number, which is 902-427-7788, between Monday and Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Myself or one of my colleagues, there are 2 other social workers, we're covering what's called intake. So if you call between Monday and Friday, 8 to 4, you'll be referred to whoever is on intake that week, and we will get back to you within 1 to 2 business days about your request, and either we can meet in person to complete the application together, or we can do it over the phone or by email. It's not a very long application, Elizabeth, I'm sure you can speak to, just some basic information about the family and how to get in touch so that Strongest Families knows how to get a hold of you.
Yeah, exactly. And so things may, I know we've got folks from across the country, but things may work a little bit differently for each MFRC. But typically what Danny is mentioning there for the Halifax MFRC is often the case for lots of MFRCs across the country where there are some staff that could certainly help to get that referral form through. And like Danny mentioned, what we are really looking for from that referral form is just the sort of basic family information and how to get a hold of the family, and then we will we kind of take it from there in terms of getting the background and the story for what's happening with that family.
That's right. And so if a family felt uncomfortable, for example, sharing the details of why they would like that referral, they don't have to feel like they have to share that with myself or my colleagues through the MFRC. They can just state that it's personal, that they'd rather discuss it directly with Strongest Families, as long as they can give us an idea of which program they feel might be appropriate with them, and we can chat with them a little bit about how each program works so they can decide what works for them. But again, that's something Strongest Families will sort out with them. So if a family doesn't feel comfortable discussing in great detail with us, they don't need to feel like they have to.
Great, thanks for pointing that out, Danny. And if we want to just click on to the next slide there, as I mentioned, Strongest Family Services are available throughout 20 MFRCs in Canada at the moment. Our funding, our partners with True Patriot Love and federally with MFS have us continuing to grow in areas where we're available. To give you some perspective, we started out about 3.5 years ago in 3 MFRCs, Halifax, St. John's, and Kingston, and have worked our way in the last sort of 3.5 or 4 years into now 20 MFRCs across the country, and we're hoping to continue to grow that number as the years go on. So the list of the MFRCs where you can get a referral directly are listed here. And for your information on the next slide, we're also provincially available in a number of places. So all throughout the Maritime provinces, so Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, PEI, New Brunswick, whether a family is military or civilian, they can go to a civilian local mental health clinic and get a referral that way. In Ontario, we have a number of smaller contracts throughout Ontario that are continuing to grow there. As you can see, Peel Children's Centre, Thunder Bay, Barrie, and Woodview. Quite a lot of Alberta also falls under places that are provincially funded. We have actually a small contract that's just starting in British Columbia as well. So there are some sort of civilian routes to go through in lots of parts of the country to get referrals as well. And then just again for interest sake, some information there about we're working on a national expansion into New Zealand, hopefully in the next year. We have some work, some research happening in Finland and Vietnam as well. So we're really continuing to grow and to expand throughout the country and also around the world.
So I have a question for you.
Sure.
I'm a military spouse who may not be part of one of these MFRCs, may live in a place that's very different. As a military spouse, if I had children of that age, would I be able to access the services somehow?
The very best thing to do if that is the case for a military family and they're not close to one of these MFRCs and are interested would be to contact us directly or contact me directly. Again, my email address there is at the bottom of this slide. And we sometimes, again, because our funding comes through True Patriot Love, and we've been working very closely with them to identify new MFRCs to move into as we continue to expand. They ultimately are the ones that are helping us to decide which MFRCs we will accept referrals through. But we really do our best to try not to turn families away if they are needing services. So if you find yourself not close to one of these MFRCs, I would just encourage you to reach out to me directly, and we can see if there's anything that we can do to help to facilitate that.
Wonderful, thank you.
So I think this is the end, the last slide here. Does anyone have any questions before we finish up here? I think that I've gone through all of the information I have here in my notes, and so if anyone has any questions, I'd be very happy to answer a few before we finish up tonight.
And also there will be, when you log out, there will be a survey. If you can, just a very short survey, if you can answer a few questions on how you found this presentation, that would be wonderful. And Christine Gordon-Manley, did you want to ask your question? Or speak your...
Sorry, you caught me as I was sipping on a cup of
Isn't that always the way?
It's not a question. I just wanted to say how wonderful this sounds. I live in PEI, and right now mental health services for children, we're in kind of a crisis mode, and it takes 5 years for even a child to get assessed. So it sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Christina. I mean, we have a lot of referrals coming through since we're now provincially funded in PEI, and they continue to be very supportive. So we're getting lots of PEI families coming through as a way to help with that wait list for some of those services.
Great. And Petawawa has referred a number of families, and feedback has been extremely positive as well. That's exciting. Well, thanks, you so much. Thank you for coming out. This recording is going to be available for your families, and so we'll make sure that everybody gets a copy of it, and you can share as you see fit with your communities.
Thank you so much, guys. It was wonderful. It's Lisa from Petawawa.
You're welcome, Lisa. It's wonderful to hear from you.
Yeah, and keep
Thanks
up the
so
good
much.
work.
Thank you.
We've got more families to refer, so that's good.
That's great. Keep them coming. Thanks so much,
Great.
everyone. Take
To
care.
exit out, just click on the red X on the top right-hand side of your screen. Thank you so much for coming out tonight.
Thank you.
I'm going to stop the recording.